I would say initially when we first started, I feel like the environment was just one where the professors wanted to just make sure it was fun, right? We were just coming in from high school. We were all in a new place. We're all around new people that are like-minded, right? And so I feel like it was more of a fun type of atmosphere, and they did create that competitive component, right? But I think over time, at least for me, what I eventually started to get from the professors was that we have a responsibility as well, right? And we have a responsibility to do two things. We have a responsibility to be as good as we can be at what it is that we're doing, right? And we also have a responsibility after we develop those skills, right? We reach back and we use our talents to help the folks coming behind us, right? And so those were some of the major things that I feel like I acquired from our professors. In particular, we had our math professor, Dr. Frazier, was probably one of the most influential professors that we actually had at Prairie View. Pretty well known, and he was just a guy. I mean, he would be teaching math one second, and then he's giving you a life lesson the next second, right? And one thing that he would always tell us all the time, he would always say, you got to cultivate young minds. You got to cultivate young minds, right? And so cultivating young minds, what I interpreted from that was the knowledge that he's imparting on us, right? We have to take that knowledge, understand it. We have to excel with it. We have to go out to these jobs. We have to perform well. And then we have to go and teach other people how to do the same thing. We got to reach back, put ourselves in a position in order to lift people coming behind us to continue to push them down the pipeline, right? And so to your question where you talked about what's missing, what I think is that a lot of students don't necessarily feel that responsibility. They don't feel that cultural responsibility that they have, to where it's like they have a purpose. Like there's a reason why you're here, right? And whatever it is, the gifts and the talents that you have, there are people in the world that need that from you, right? You have something to offer and you have a purpose on this earth. And so I think a lot of students don't really feel that. They're not really taught that necessarily. And so I think that's one of the major things that's missing from the classroom and just in general in a lot of young people's lives today.
That makes sense. I don't know, Cecil, if you had anything on that as well.
He captured it real well. And actually, those elements that are missing is wrapped up in sort of in our mission statement. Our goal, our mission is to help individuals build endurance, practice discipline, and take ownership of their education. And they'll use the tools that we teach them to fulfill their ultimate purpose in life, whether that's STEM, history, whatever, ministry, whatever it is that you seek to put your mind to. You have to have those three elements. You have to have endurance, you got to have discipline, and you got to take ownership and responsibility. And that's what Dr. Frazier and Dr. Kirby, through that STEM program, that's what they did for us. We were up at 6 a.m. starting math problems. That right there was the epitome of discipline coming straight out of high school.
Right.
And we were solving problems all day. I remember I was like, man, I've already taken Cal 2. I've already taken this class. They took us all the way back to algebra. And we had to practice algebra all throughout the summer, all day long, every day. So what that did was build that endurance. That's that endurance we talked about. It got to the part where, doing positive, negatives, multiplicatives, inverses, all of that became second nature, right? And we're using our own flavor on it as well. That's something that Dr. Frazier did a lot. He brought his culture into the classroom. However he talked outside of the classroom, that's exactly how he talked in the classroom. Whatever he learned at church that Sunday, he talked about it in the classroom. Now, I'm not sure you could do it the way he was doing it in this day and age, but he was talking about Jesus. He was talking about farmlands, all kinds of stuff. And so it's just amazing how he was able to sort of intertwine his faith system in with his lesson plan. And I think the culmination of all that just really created a different experience for us. Another thing you always used to say was, you got to have high morals and high standards.
Right.
So, those two things, he used those two things and kind of intertwined it with the mathematics lesson. So it was almost like you wasn't really coming to a math class anymore. You was coming to watch the show. You was coming to watch the Dr. Frazier show. And you wanted to be a part of that show. And only those who were performing, no, I take that back. Either you're performing great or you're not performing at all. Those are the two characters that's going to be a part of that show.
Right.
Because he's going to call you out, in the classroom. Definitely. So I think that creating that environment, all of that is what we try to embody. That's what Chi-Core tries to embody. That's what we learn. That's what we feel that classrooms now need, or just learn. It didn't even have to be a classroom setting, but just in the learning setting. You know what I'm saying? You need those elements. So.
Right. Yeah. Those are good points that y'all bring out, right, man? And you can see the influence, the impact that somebody like a Dr. Frazier even had on y'all, that we're talking about years later, that you still remember to a T, right, the exact phrases, the exact wordings, the lessons, the illustrations, right? And like you said, it's because he brought his culture, he brought lessons that he was learning on the outside in the real world into the classroom. And I think that's when I look at you guys and what y'all are doing, for me on the outside looking in, that's how I see it as well with you, right? I see like, wow, it's important for you to have, for us, especially in the Black community, to have this representation of us, right, in the classroom, of us in the learning environment, to make learning, one, fun, but to also not just to make it cool, but to make it where it's like, this is just what we do. This is a part of us, right? This is how we get down, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's not even from a sense of like, oh, you got to be 2 times better than the other individual necessarily, but no, we're good because we're good. We're excellent because we're excellent. Like that's just what we do, right? And having kids that come from maybe a place where they didn't have that in their environment, they didn't have that in their home life, is so important, right? You know what I mean? To have an opportunity to have that around them, right? You know what I mean?
I think one other thing I wanted to say that just in honor of Dr. Frazier is another thing that we actually continue to talk about today that drives us. So Dr. Frazier, he actually passed away a few years ago, but while we were still in school, this was after we were done taking his math classes. He actually called me and Cecil to his office and he gave us a commission, if you will. And what he told us was, he said, we have to keep this thing going, right? And it's funny because he didn't really have to go into detail around what he meant by that. I think Cecil and I we just knew what it was that he was talking about. And so whenever we get to a point, we feel like we're getting frustrated, or we feel like, we thinking about quitting and hanging up the towel and just turning everything in and turning the light off. We always think about what Dr. Frazier told us. We got to keep this thing going. So I just wanted to mention that as well, because that's something that continues to drive us today.
Wow. Thanks for watching the Lion and Lambo podcast. We hope this clip has been a huge blessing to you. And we want to remind you that we drop new videos, new podcast episodes every Sunday at 9 o'clock. You can find the full episode by clicking the card up at the top right of this video. If you prefer an audio-only experience, then we want to let you know that we're streaming through every major podcast streaming platform. For the full list, you can go to www.lionandthelambo.com. Until next time, go impact the world.